Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over some severe storms which are going to be impacting much of the central United States over the next 3 days. We're going to be going over what the Storm Prediction Center is showing, and we're also going to be timing out this severe weather threat for you guys. So make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end to get all the information in this video. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. We have a few freeze warnings in effect and frost advisories for parts of California and Oregon, as well as some freeze watches in effect for parts of southern Idaho, and some more frost advisories for parts of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. And then we have a couple of freeze warnings in effect for eastern West Virginia. We have red flag warnings scattered throughout parts of the southwest, and some more wind advisories scattered throughout parts of the south central United States, and also a little bit of Montana and Idaho. And other than that, we don't have many other watches or warnings currently in place. Yesterday we had a high temperature in Death Valley, California, where they got up to 106 degrees Fahrenheit, and we had a low temperature tie between two areas, both in North Dakota and Minot Air Force Base. They got to 18 degrees Fahrenheit, and so did Rolla, North Dakota. Both of those in the northern half of the state, and both of them got to 18 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest precipitation or rainfall report was in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, where they got to 2 inches of rainfall. And the highest snowfall report was 5 miles east of Gallatin Gateway in Montana, where they got 7 inches of snow. Here's what the current Storm Prediction Center page looks like, and you can see that we actually do have a slight risk in effect for parts of Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri, and this is for today. And then we have that marginal risk which spans even as far south as Texas and Oklahoma. So that's the main area of risk for today according to the Storm Prediction Center. And then if we look at the Storm Prediction Center's forecast for tomorrow, you can see that for mainly tomorrow afternoon, we have a slight risk of severe weather in effect for parts of Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas. All of these areas do have a rather significant risk of seeing some severe storms. These aren't going to be necessarily an outbreak of storms, but it does look like we're going to see one line of storms that'll roll through these areas and potentially could bring down a couple trees or power lines as they move through. So there are a couple concerns with this, although again this doesn't look to be some sort of huge major type of event. Here's the day 3 outlook, and you can see that for Monday we have a marginal risk which covers much of the Gulf states except for the areas along the immediate Gulf Coast. So it looks like areas especially in the southeast and the south central United States could be seeing a few storms on Monday, especially in the morning hours. And then also for a little area in North Carolina and southern Virginia, we also have a marginal risk of severe weather, and again that would be for Monday. So let's time this out for you guys. Starting off in the Central Plains, you can see that we have a low pressure in Kansas. We're also going to be seeing another low pressure which is back into Arizona by this point, and that's going to be making its way into New Mexico. It won't really have too major of an effect on this storm, however. We also have a lot of warm Gulf air that's being pushed up from the Gulf of Mexico and the southern United States, and we're actually going to have temperatures, believe it or not, all up through Kansas, western Oklahoma, western Texas, all throughout this area. You guys are going to be in the 90s for today and into tomorrow as well. So we're dealing with very, very warm temperatures all throughout this area, and that's what's really going to be helping to fuel these storms. So let's move this forward a little bit. So this is by late tonight, and then later tonight, this is around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and we're dealing with more of these storms heading into especially northern Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa. Doesn't look too severe, however, just by this point. We are starting to see a little bit more of a cluster of storms by very early tomorrow morning. So this is around 12 or 1 a.m., and we're dealing with a very heavy area of rainfall over northern Missouri, northern Kansas, southern Iowa, and some of the surrounding areas. That little cluster of storms is going to head to the south. You can see that we actually have 2 low pressures developing by this point. So we have one stronger one here. So this is your first low pressure, and then we have another one that's down here, which is a weaker one, but it is still important, and it still will have an effect on this system. We also will have some rather windy conditions if you live in through this area right here, because of the strong pressure gradient. We actually have a high pressure out to the east, and then we have, of course, that 998 millibar low pressure to the north. So right in between there is where we're going to be dealing with the strongest winds, potentially gusting to 40 or 45 miles per hour at times through the Mississippi River Valley. So this would be by Sunday morning around 5 or 6 a.m. and we're dealing with more of that rainfall in through parts of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. That is going to break up as we move through the later morning hours on Sunday. Even into the early afternoon, we're not seeing too much strengthening out of these storm systems just yet. So that low pressure is still in southern Illinois by this point. It's still not really too intense by this point because we did go through that weakening stage, but it will kind of revamp itself and it will intensify again through the evening hours on Sunday, and then eventually it should break down into early on Monday morning and become a lot less severe. So let's go through this a little bit more, and you can see that by Sunday night, tomorrow night, around 6 or 7 o'clock, we're dealing with these storms starting to line up through the Tennessee Valley. So you have that low pressure up in Ohio, and then you have this big line of storms which goes all the way down to Texas, where we actually do see a little bit of convective activity starting up. If we continue this forward a little bit more, you're going to see that those storms continue to actually grow and maybe become a little bit more severe. And I think the bulk of that severe weather is going to happen in through the southern part of the system. So really through here is where we're going to be dealing with the most rainfall, convective activity, and potential hail activity. We might even see one or two tornadoes, unfortunately, but it does look like the main threat is going to be hail and damaging winds with this type of event. This will be by early on Monday morning, and you can see that through northern Alabama and northern Mississippi, still dealing with a little bit of severe storm activity, but it is really breaking up by this point. We're not dealing with too much more in the way of severe storms. Here's the total rainfall out of this. And you can see that we do have a few clusters of heavy rainfall. So we have one area which goes through the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and then into parts of the Northeast, where we have a solid band of 1 to 2.5 inches of rainfall. And that, again, covers anywhere from Iowa to about Pennsylvania with that heavy rainfall. We have another one, because of that very intense band of rainfall that moved through parts of Kansas and Missouri, they have another batch of 1 to maybe 2 inches of rainfall. And then the more intense rainfall, the heaviest rainfall, will be occurring over the next about 2.5 days over northern Mississippi, northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and potentially a little bit of northeastern Texas as well, where you can even see a few pockets of potentially 6 or more inches of rainfall. Although for the majority of these areas, the widespread effects will be about 3 to 6 inches of rainfall. So either way, it is a lot of rainfall, especially in a short amount of time. That could definitely cause some issues. So always remember, turn around, don't drown. If you see a flooded part of the road, definitely try and avoid that, or kind of just turn around and go through another detour. If you know another detour, it's really not worth it going through the water because you never know how deep the water actually is. Here is the CAPE values, the convective available potential energy, and this is showing you how much energy and instability is in the atmosphere. The higher this number, the more unstable the atmosphere is, and the more chance that there will be some severe storms. So this is by Saturday night or tonight, and we're dealing with over the central and southern plains, CAPE values between about 1250 to about 2500. So that is a fairly good amount, and that definitely could produce a few severe storms. And you can see it's all above 1,000 CAPE through the southern and central United States. So that is definitely going to help these storms continue to grow. And then if we look at for tomorrow afternoon, we actually do have some rather high CAPE values through Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all through those areas that are going to be dealing with the bulk of the severe weather for tomorrow. And we have, again, CAPE values between about 1,500 and 2,500 throughout those areas, even in parts of Texas up to 3,500 CAPE in those areas. So definitely we have ample amounts of energy for many of these areas that are going to be affected by the severe storms. And we also have enough warm air in place. Here's what the high temperatures look like for today. And you can see that in the darker red, that's where you're above 85 degrees. And then when you're in that gray shade, that's where you're between 90 and 100. If you start to hit that white color, that's where you're above 100. So you can even see that through western Kansas, western Oklahoma, western Texas, all above 90 degrees Fahrenheit in these areas. And you're also warming up. This isn't even the day that these areas are going to see severe weather, but in the southeastern United States also warming up, and that should just prepare the atmosphere for these storms. So if you actually look at tomorrow's high temperatures, this is for Sunday, you can see that we have high temperatures in the southern United States all above 70, and definitely a lot of areas above 80, where that orange starts to turn a little bit darker. That's where you're getting into the 80s. So well above what you would need to get a typical thunderstorm, and so warm air definitely not going to be an issue here. If we look at the dew points as well, these will not be an issue either. You can see that we have dew points that are above 60 in all these areas, which is what I typically like to use as the benchmark, and they're all above 65 for the most part also in the central and southern plains, even a few 70 plus degree dew points in parts of Texas and Oklahoma. So all of that should help fuel these storms for later tonight. And if we look at tomorrow, we actually have even higher dew points over a more widespread area through eastern Texas, much of Louisiana, a little bit of Mississippi, and also into Arkansas. We have dew points that are above 70, which is well above the standard benchmark that I like to use for severe weather. And normally, if you have a dew point above 60, you can get a thunderstorm to pop up. So if we're 10 or 15 degree or 10 or 15 higher than that, that definitely will help bring these storms over these areas. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.